Hello there, everyone. Mediocre Otaku here, and recently I just finished watching Legend of the Galactic Heroes, and I just wanted to say my piece on it. I have not watched all of the side story stuff yet. I finished the main series. I watched a four-episode murder mystery side story, um, something of the morning, something of the night, I don't remember exactly what it was called. Uh, Something in the morning, song of the night. A lot of these have kind of weird names, um, but yeah, I don't want to go too much into the story because there is a lot of stuff that goes on. There's a lot of moving parts. Um, so all I'm gonna say is that you have the rebels versus the Empire. And what's interesting is that the Empire is more or less supposed to be the villain, but the story is much more centered around what's going on in the Empire because they have way more stuff going on than the rebels do, which I think is interesting. And it's not like Star Wars where everyone in the Empire is a bad guy. Most of the people in the Empire you actually do get the sense, and you see that they're decent people. Um, they're just sort of not doing super ethical stuff by trying to take over everything. Um, but yeah, the main character for the Rebels is Yang Wenli, and the main character of the Empire is Reinhard von Lohengram. And the two of them do have a pretty cool sort of rivalry going on. I did really like that. And seeing how that all plays out. I'm not going to go into any spoilers because all I'm going to say is the last third third to last quarter of the show, some pretty crazy stuff starts happening. But again, if you want to see this series, I recommend you try to seek it out for yourselves. Unfortunately, I think the only legal streaming service that has it is Sentai's streaming service. And if you want to buy the Blu-ray, you're going to have to save up a lot of money because that shit's expensive. And I don't see a standard edition of this coming out ever. I feel like they would have done it already, or at least mentioned it. But who knows? Maybe they'll get to it eventually. I feel like the people involved with the production of it in Japan are super protective of this license, and so I think they kind of have Sentai by the gonads. Is the case maybe? So we'll see what happens with it in the future. But yeah, so like I said, there's a lot of moving parts in the story. I'm not going into it. There's a lot of characters, some of which I feel don't really push the plot forward at all or matter at all. They introduced this one guy. This is after the Empire colonizes this planet called Fizan, if I'm remembering this stuff correctly. And they have this guy there that's supposed to be handling the economics or something. He has long hair. I don't remember his name. Because they introduced this guy, he does nothing, and then they just kill him off. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, I guess, but what was the point of him being around? He did nothing at all. The way he died was not important to any of the other characters. At least with Attack on Titan, when these characters that are introduced die right away, you see Armin and Eren oh shit, we are in way over our heads. But that's not what happens with this. He just gets fucking exploded, and that's the end of it, basically. So, but I don't mind characters dying. I just feel like you should either see some sort of character arc, or their death should matter to someone else. So a lot of that sort of happened in this show. the music was great. It was all a bunch of like classical music. I loved the soundtrack. The openings and endings were all pretty good, and then the actual soundtrack within the show. Animation, it can vary quite a bit from episode to episode. Um, they did this thing, and I've never seen any other series do this before. The show started in the late 80s, I think 88. So everything was still done through the cell style animation, whatever. So they would do this thing where they would somehow make the film grain not move. I don't know how they've done it. I've never seen any other release do something like that. But there were a few instances where, like, the film grain wouldn't be moving. There'd be a character there talking, and then he would like turn around, and you could see the film grain around the character move, but all the stuff in the background just remained still, and it really is jarring to someone who like really cares about visual and audio quality and all that stuff. Audio quality was still pretty good for the record. But yeah, and then so I don't know what the deal with that was. And then there were other issues which couldn't really be helped too much, where sometimes they'd have to reanimate like entire episodes because the original masters were lost or just too damaged. But they reanimated those episodes digitally in like the early 2000s, I'm assuming, based off of how they look. So it's pretty jarring to go from something from late 80s, early 90s to early 2000s. But on top of that, they also added a layer of like digitally produced film grain on top of the digitally animated stuff to try to make it match a little bit more with the original stuff. But like they tried to remove the film grain from the original series, and then when they went back and reanimated it, they were like, "Oh, let's add some film grain." It doesn't make any sense at all. But whatever. So overall, I do like this show. Do I think it's the greatest show of all time? No. Personally, I like when shows are more character driven and driven, by the interactions between the characters. And this show, it has that, but most of the time, it's just the narrator explaining to you what happened between those interactions instead of you actually seeing the two characters interact. So I feel like I am a lot less connected to these characters then, and so when they get killed off or whatever, or I just don't really care most of the time, because I don't feel like I actually really got to know them too well. But clearly, other people absolutely adore this show, and I am happy that they do. Like I said, I don't think it's a bad show. I don't think it's the greatest show either, not by a long shot. And I did enjoy watching it, and they did some stuff in there that I thought was really well done. And I would recommend people try to find this show. Like I said, the availability of it is not great, but if you have the chance to watch it, I'd say at least watch the first few episodes, see if you're interested in it, and take it from there. But those are my extremely basic opinions on this series. In the process of watching all the side story OVAs now, and gonna get into the movies. I still have a ton of stuff to watch for this show. Maybe my opinion will change on it a little bit after I watch all of the side stuff, but I don't... Like, that's the sign of maybe not the greatest franchise if you have to watch all of the side content in order to fully appreciate the main series. I don't know. But that'll do it for this video, guys. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.